I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Today we have filmmaker Jon M on the show. You've likely seen some of his work on the big screen. He directed G.I. Joe Retaliation, as well as Justin Bieber's movie and many others. Jon and I talk about a profound moment in his childhood when he not only asked himself, why not now, but he had to sell the idea to his mom. It was a conversation that definitely shaped his future. And as for Jon's current why not now that he's working on, he had to do one thing that nudged him forward. And it applies to so many of us. Once we pull this certain trigger, we're off and we have momentum. Before we hop into this episode, let me fill you in on a little secret of mine. That's Headspace. It's a guided meditation app, and I never imagined that doing something for 10 minutes a day could increase my quality of life so much. I've always struggled with knowing when to make things happen versus when to let things happen. Sometimes things go very well when I push on the gas, and sometimes not so much. It gets me into trouble. Headspace has helped me with learning how to trust my intuition. And I've tried meditation off and on for years. It's never stuck, but this time it has. I've made a very intentional shift in my morning routine, and that's to wake up, have my coffee, do Headspace, journal, and then I check my email, my social media, all of my devices. It's been a big shift, but great result. My aunt used to say, don't let anything rent space in your head for free. That's valuable real estate. Headspace allows me to be a much better landlord of my thoughts, especially first thing in the morning. You can go to headspace.com/why not now for a free trial. And if you stick around to the end of the show, I'll tell you how you can get a month for free. Hello, Jon, and welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Excited.
Yeah, so excited. So diving right in, and having followed your career and stalking you a bit via my internet skills, I know for a fact that you're what I call an expert why-notter. You know, you really have that in you. Can you recall a time when you had been thinking about doing something for a long time and you thought to yourself, why not now?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
It's funny because I have a lot of ideas and plans. And so most of my ideas and plans are sitting there waiting to be acted on. But the most key moments in my life have been the moment where I just decided and just said, I'm going to do it. Instead of thinking about it. I would say the earliest one I remember, and I remember this moment very clearly, is I was young. I was probably at this point 14, 15 years old. I knew I wanted to be a director before, maybe when I was 10 years old. But the real commitment came when I was probably 15, 16 years old, and I had thought about in my head, okay, I'm going to make movies. Where do I need to go to school? All these plans, but not really committed to that idea yet. It was just more of what I answer people when they ask me what I want to do. And I convinced my teachers to allow me to make videos instead of write papers. And my mom came in one day, and almost all my classes allowed me to do this. So I was editing all night long. And so my mom came in one day. It was I'd done so many videos at this point, and it was 4 a.m, and she was really angry. She's like, "You need to go to sleep. You need to be studying. You can't be doing this video thing. I'm going to call all the teachers and tell them that you're scamming them to do videos." And so she made me turn on my computer. I think she unplugged my computer, and I went to bed. And in the middle of the night, I got up and I went to her. It's one of the only times I've like cried as past the age of 10. But I said, "Mom, you've always told us to follow our dreams and do what we love. And this is what I love. This is not a hobby. And if you can either fight me on it or you can support me on it." And I remember very clearly sitting in my bed thinking, this is that moment, and there's no turning back. And the next day she brought books and books of filmmaking. And she said, if you're going to do this for real, you have to study it like math or science. You have to work hard and actually take it very seriously. And that changed the whole trajectory of my life. It was no longer me waiting to get into college, me waiting to have someone say, "Oh, you can be a director or you can go do this thing," or waiting for my parents' sort of approval of that. Like I had made the decision on my own, whether my mom brought those books or not, I was going to do it. And that made my focus sort of laser sharp. And so that I think that was like the first one. There's many other ones that have sort of formed at harder times when you don't have the security of your family that I can talk about too if you want. But that was, I think, my earliest moment that I can clearly see shifted my whole life.
That's fascinating because it was such a young age, and you knew and acted upon it. I read a Chicken Soup for the Soul passage of I think chapter 9 it was, and I read about you just fascinated by the Sharper Image catalog and the VCRs and the VHS, which was so cool. So given that, let's say you are an aspiring director or just someone who has been in a bit of a drought. I've learned a little bit about those years where you felt that you were in a drought, and you wake up in the morning. What advice would you have for them to get their why not now on?
Yeah. Well, I've been through so many droughts and down moments that, when you do interviews and you do things you don't talk about, but my whole path, my whole journey is littered with those moments. In a way, I see them as stepping stones. And now I embrace every single one of those times. When there's a bad time or there's a time where you are suffering or feel lost, to me, that's like such an opportunity, because every one of those, when I look back in my life, have turned into opportunities. And so I see it as a time to not be afraid of those moments, but to sort of swim in it, explore what it is. Usually I'm more creative at that time, so I try to write as much stuff down as I can, and then gives me a path forward. There's never not been a time where I haven't found a path forward. So I don't get excited when those things happen, but I feel very confident that life finds a way. Life, the grass grows through the concrete. Like there's no possible way you're going to die in a ditch because something failed in your life. One day we're going to be 90, however years old, and we're going to be in our deathbed, and we're going to look back on our lives, and these things, we won't even remember these things. And so I've definitely had those. I would say the one of the most significant professionally would have been, I came out of college, Steven Spielberg saw my short film. I got a job right out of college to direct a movie at Sony called Bye Bye Birdie. I was all over the trades. I was 22 years old. Nobody knew who I was. And all of a sudden, everyone in the Hollywood sort of business world knew who I was because of Steven, because of these projects. And it was a great time. I was meeting everyone in the business, meeting after meeting. And then cut to 5 years later, I have not made one movie. So I had not made one movie, and the process, developing films and each one falling through the cracks or each one being over budget and not being able to be made was a hard one. And those 5 years were the hardest professional years of my life because you're on a high And that high probably lasts for a couple of years in there. And all of a sudden, each opportunity starts falling away and you feel yourself disappearing. And all the things that you relied on of walking into a room and people being excited to see you suddenly shifts, and you can feel that shift of energy. And I kept waiting for people to give me that job, give me the thing that'll give me that energy again. And I asked Steven actually at the time, like, when do I know I'm like a director? He's like, you are what you do every day. If you, and I've said this in a lot of different interviews, but it really is true, and it's been the most handy thing in my whole life to refer to, because he's like, if you are a writer, you don't have to tell everyone you're a writer. You just are a writer. In fact, nobody has to hire you to be a writer. You just write every day. It has to come from some place that it's like breathing. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to put it on your card. Like, you either are, you aren't. You're either getting started something or you're not, and you're just sitting there talking about something. And if you lie every day, little white lies here or there, then you're a liar. Even though it may not affect everyone, that's who you are. And so for me, it really opened my brain of, you don't have to wait for anybody's permission. I'm going to direct movies. That's it. And whether I'm getting paid for it or not, whether it's YouTube videos, and thank God for YouTube at the time, at that moment, because it allowed, and for digital technology, because you could have a phone and shoot stuff, and you could edit on things that you had available and that you didn't have to buy specialty stuff for, and then you could release it and have the world see it. But your motivation has to be right. It has to be right on being, I want to be a great storyteller, not I want to be famous or I want all this money, because that's a different job. That's not a craft. And so for me, that was really important. So all I've been focusing on in all my movies and all my journeys is just becoming a better storyteller, and not even being specific about that. Because sometimes I think people get too specific. Like, oh, I want to make just studio movies. I want to have my post, and that kind of comes from an ego place, because what is a studio movie? A studio movie is, okay, it has a big distributor that has a label on the top, but I think half of it is like, oh, I want to see Universal on the front of my movie, and that's your ego talking. That's not a craft. Film, cinema comes from an honest place of showing humanity, of reflecting humanity, or taking people on a adventure, on a journey, let them escape their lives. And so whether that is a movie or a commercial or a sequel or a dance movie or documentary, if you're truly a storyteller, you can take any medium. And if you want to just focus on films, that's fine. But as a storyteller, I think there's so many opportunities to tell stories and refine how you see people, how you reflect people in that medium, audio visually, how you get your grammar better and all that stuff. And for me, that's my focus, and has shifted the way. It wasn't until that moment, because I got a script at that time when I hadn't done a movie in 5 years, and I was really depressed. My girlfriend left me, and I was in this empty condominium being really sad, that I got this script called Step Up 2, and it was a direct-to-DVD, small, under $5 million project of a sequel to a dance movie called Step Up. I was like, hell no, I'm not doing this movie. I don't do direct-to-DVD sequels, especially. I got found by Steven Spielberg. I'm this, I'm that. And my mom was like, when did you become a snob? And that woke me up. She was right. She's like, if you're a storyteller, you've got to actually tell stories, and you haven't had the chance. It's like you're on an NBA team and you're on the bench and you haven't had your 2 minutes. So get your 2 minutes. Show us. And I was like, you're right. I'm going to make the best damn direct-to-DVD dance movie sequel ever. And so we redid the script. I took the job, redid the script, and then Disney at that point, who had distributed the first movie, was not distributing the second movie as a theatrical, found out that I was attached. So they brought me in to see what I was doing with it. And within 20 minutes, they were like, we want to release this as a feature. You have more money, more resources, but it's got to be done in 9 months. So within 9 months, without a script or anything, we shot and released a movie after waiting 5 years. And it just took a moment of saying, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to prove myself as a storyteller first, and pour my heart into something that other people may look down on, but in terms of like a sequel to a dance movie, but I'm going to give humanity in this. I'm going to help communicate what I love about dance and what I love about people in this movie. And luckily it worked. And since then it's been 8 years, and I've done 7 movies in 8 years. So it's been a great ride of saying yes, really.
What value your mom's words, but also just that you are what you do every day. It's so true.
Yeah.
And I read something where you had said, fear is the death of creativity, and getting comfortable can really haunt you, and it gets dangerous. When you start to question yourself and wonder, what the critics would say, even like right now, the shoes that you're in, when we slip into that, caring too much about what everybody else thinks, it really starts to damper our creativity. And that fear, I think for listeners, to hear your story, and I think of one of my mentors, Tony Hsieh, always talks about, the saber-toothed tiger and fight or flight. And just because something's scary doesn't mean it can hurt us. So, to your point of, when we are 90, will we even remember this? And what's the worst thing that can happen is kind of a game I play with myself. And then I answer that, and then I say, then what? Then what? And usually it's pretty safe, and potentially I'm living with my parents living on their couch or something, eating top ramen is the worst. So
yes, exactly.
It's safe enough to try, right? And segueing right now into a little bit more about the movie making world and technology. You mentioned YouTube in that era, kind of the age of no excuses, which just so democratizes talent and has that equal playing field. When we first met, it made me think about this. We first met on the set of G.I. Joe Retaliation, and you were directing the film with my client at the time, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I remember that day well because DJ and I had to sit down and have this kind of come to Jesus meeting with some of the studio execs.
Yes.
And I think our hand had been slapped because we were storytelling behind the scenes using social media.
Yes.
And of course, the film wasn't going to be out for more than a year. And there was some concern that we'd be giving away the storyline or fatiguing fans. And you and I had a conversation about how you've used social communication to help create movies and produce in the past. I think there was a situation with the Justin Bieber documentary, or did you use social to bring in extras or something?
Yeah, we used social media a lot. It wasn't even like a tool. It was just an extended part of our production, really. When we needed people to show up, we tweeted and they showed up. When we were doing helicopter shots around Madison Square Garden, we said, hey, tweet your cross streets and we'll do a helicopter flyby. And if you're wearing purple, we'll do a great shot of you guys. And they did it. And it was insane being in the helicopter, getting tweets of cross streets and doing that. We even did a test where it was raining one day and we're like, we need an umbrella. Come to this street in New York, and within 2 minutes and 15 seconds, somebody showed up with an umbrella. I mean, that show of power of the social media was amazing, and we knew that we could utilize it because his brand is that. So we used it as part of both our production, but part of the storytelling. That our story started way before the movie ever came out. It started the moment I went to his first show and met him for the first time, and he taught me. He literally was like, "Let's film this." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he started shooting, and he's like, "Hey guys, this is Justin, and this is the director of my movie. He keeps following me around, and let's start this." And that started the conversation, and it was a genuine, real moment. It was not fabricated. And then we would check in, and we would talk back and forth via Twitter, and that included this audience in our conversation. And that was a really eye-opening thing for me that he sort of guided me through, and it was absolutely true. And even more today, as I watch his career progress and grow, that has been the net that has caught him every time, and also sort of the thing that's kept his compass. Because when he veers, they bite back, and when he comes back, they come back. And so I it's a very interesting tool, and it just has to be used in the right way. And I watch what you guys did with Dwayne and even promoting not just our movie but other movies as well. It's been it was super cool to see that happen, and I learned a lot because he has a very specific relationship with his fans as well, motivating people to be better, and those are powerful messages, that people have a very personal relationship with a celebrity like these guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, growing up in Palo Alto, you really were in the epicenter of technology before you even, started your career, right? And so given that, and you've done some amazing things with 3D, and I can only imagine what's cooking in your mind. But can we talk a little bit about where tech and film are going and the unique ways that you've already used tech, but there's also so much advancing, by 2029, evidently, AI will reach human level intelligence. And the future of movies and film, what does that mean for sci-fi? Is it getting harder to impress people or to take them into the fictitious world? And what do you think about this emerging wave of robotics, and how does that relate to movies?
Well, I feel very blessed to have grown up in Palo Alto, right in the heart of Silicon Valley. My dad has a restaurant there, Chef Chu's, that's been there for 46 years now. So they've grown up with the city, and I grew up in almost raised by the Silicon Valley as a filmmaker, because people from Adobe and Apple and Sun Microsystems and IBM, people who were in the area would come and give me computers, like beta computers that they weren't using because they knew I was into video. And so these things didn't come with manuals, so I had to figure it out myself. But every couple of months, I'd get a new computer from them, and I would have to learn all these programs that weren't even out to the public. And so by the time I went to USC, I was already on the digital train. I had equipment that nobody had access to, and even the school itself had not switched to digital fully.
Wow.
So in a weird sort of outliers way, everything was in the right place. And so technology has been such a close part of my life. It has been, to me, growing up in that environment, everyone was an engineer. All my parents' friends were engineers. They weren't star engineers even as they are now. They weren't on cover of magazines. It was about people at Lockheed and all. It was just about the work of creating the future that we want, and anyone can do it, and anyone can change the world. And so so I witnessed this stuff, and I witnessed the Silicon Valley sort of blossom. And so the mentality in my head, and my parents also being immigrants and coming to this place not knowing a word of English and then establishing this restaurant, was part of that lesson that if you work hard and you focus on your work and your craft and are constantly thinking and doing, that is everything, and you don't have to fear. No one's good. No one, even if they want to say no, can say no, because it's so new or innovative or different, however the approach that you're taking. So I feel very blessed that technology has been something that is warm and beautiful to me, not cold and technical. And now that the two worlds, the Hollywood world and the Silicon Valley world, are converging, it only helps me, because I feel like that's now the next step of technology. It's always been there with technology. It's just maybe not seen by everybody as a way of that this is the blood veins of our planet, that this is the thing that connects human souls all around the world for the first time. To me, it's like electricity turning on for the world, for humanity, that we can communicate with each other, that we can access each other. The nerve endings are finally being connected, and we're just in the beginning of that. Like the iPhone, the smartphone being connected in our pocket has just happened. And so all the progress that has happened is what all throughout history, when they thought about the future, we are at the beginning of the future that they all thought about. And so that brings up a lot of questions and concerns about what's the future that we now paint in the future for us.
And how you change and frame the world, mold the world based on that, right?
Exactly. So, and those are decisions that have never been brought up until now, and we get to determine those things. So, is technology going to bring, pornography and violence and darkness, or is this technology going to bring light and hope and opportunities for people to achieve things, and for a world to achieve things and to deal with things in a way that has never been possible, whether it's a cluster of people figuring out a problem, or people from all around the world being able to help individuals that need it. I think it's there's a war for the soul of our future right now. And I know that sounds dramatic, but the reality is I look everywhere and I see the lights of the electricity turned on, and now what's going to be in the blood veins of our world. And movies and television and music and social media, this is the stuff that determines that. So I, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, see my job as something to put positivity in the world and to give hope and to remind people, and this is why I always love movies, is that a group of people come together to watch a dream, sit in the dark and watch a dream on a big screen that's bigger than themselves. And then afterwards, they get to talk about it and debate about it. And it stays with them and sometimes changes their lives or the trajectory of who they think they are and who they want to be. And I think that's such a powerful tool that now more than ever is needed, and can tell people that you're not alone. Even though everybody feels alone, everyone feels out of place, everyone feels like we're trying to find why we're here, and everybody goes through it. That movies and stories show that people everywhere are struggling, and that's what connects us, and that it's okay. It's okay to feel those things. Like, it's okay to be crying in your room alone, because guess what? Your neighbor has done that as well. And that we can help each other to get through that and then help others that need that help as well. So I feel very lucky to be in a time where technology has the power to do that. And now technology then, once it's now at this point that's on a trajectory to create AIs and self-driving cars and have access everywhere, anywhere, have every single piece of information. Now the mirror, it turns on to us and says, okay, what are we going to do with this? And so even though my movies are fluffy and fun, and it's like dance movies or pop music or G.I. Joe or magic, the core of all of it is about family and people and saying that we're not alone in our struggles. And that's what I get excited about of our future more than anything else, because the technology is going to grow. It's going to be amazing. But what we choose to do it, this is the generation that chooses the next wave of who we are, of humanity. I think that's our big quest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are so aligned on this, and I could talk about this for hours with you. I've been giving a talk lately titled "The Future of Technology is the Future of Humanity," and talking about some research, clinical research that I'm doing to study the relationship between serotonin and social communication, meaning, yeah, if we are exposed to more positive content online through social communication and people doing good things, do we then go out and do more positive things and good things in the physical world? And it's such an important thing, because, as you said, we can either shape technology or it will shape us. And I love that line of, there's a war for the soul of our future. It is the truth. I mean, when kids are learning to use tech before they learn to talk, it's just a part of normalcy, yet it seems that sometimes we don't realize how much it's driving us versus us driving it. So,
and it's pretty incredible, like the idea, even when I look at magic, like doing a lot of research for Now You See Me, I didn't know a ton about magic, but I was a fan of magicians and things like that. Just doing the research on that, now you can know every magic trick and how it's done, and every way magic has been used in politics, in religion, in advertising, and it's both psychology and storytelling and science, and the fact that we have access to all of that information is insane, and it makes you aware. It's like we're sort of waking up, and it makes you aware that a lot of stuff was set for us by other people, and that we have the power to break out of those binds because we have the information now, and we have access to free ourselves of those train of thoughts. I think about sort of I forget the word what it is misogyny that's built into our society already, or racism that's built into things that we were brought up in, and don't even realize how that affects how we see people and how we treat people. And now that we can actually communicate that and talk about it and become more aware, leaves another opportunity for us to actually act upon those things. And that is crazy because that now we can reset, or at least clarify what we mean. Like I was thinking about the other day, I opened the door for my girlfriend. And I was like, do you think that's sexist that I opened it, or is that chivalry? And she's like, well, I appreciate it. I'm like, yes, but what is that actually saying about me opening the door? She's like, no, I think it's courtesy. I think you should do that for any human being. And so I was like, there needs to be a book. Maybe you could do this, called sort of the new chivalry. And you go back and say, what should we be doing? What shouldn't we be doing? Where do these things come from? And make a new rules of etiquette.
That's a
that
great
are not
idea.
based off of any sort of misogynistic idea, but based off of people and being kind to people and what is proper and not proper to do, and reset those things so that now we have a set of rules and etiquette so that we're not opening doors for people, but it's set in a different way so we can frame it and continue to have etiquette, because I do think that's important. So
absolutely,
all those things can be retested and re-looked at, and I think that's so exciting.
Yes, and the intentions behind them, and 100% is the unconscious gender bias. Really, is kind of what we're talking about, and
yes,
and the pronouns we use. I had a attorney called me not too long ago, and he said, well, when your accountant is ready to speak, let me talk with him, and we can talk about this. And I was like, well, it's a she. You just assume that my accountant, and it's just this assumption that we habits, and it doesn't mean that he intentionally meant to say that. It was just a habit. So,
and I don't want to say that I'm immune to any of this. In fact, I'm the worst at it. And that's what makes me think about these things, because I constantly catch myself either judging someone or making an assumption. And I'm lucky enough to be in a business where I'm supposed to be thinking about what we do every day and what does that mean and all that stuff. So I catch myself, and then I try to think, why do I go there? Why, when I see a teenager with a backpack and a hoodie, and I'm on a dark street, that I cross the street for that? Why? What is it that means? And I know when I do that, when I'm wearing a hoodie and I have a backpack and people cross the street, I feel like, damn, that happens to me everywhere, and it's really freaking annoying. And that to me, it doesn't feel good. And yet when I do it to somebody else, I'm like, no, I'm just being smart. I'm just being safe. Right. And I'll rather take the risk of being safe. So seeing those two sides is such a I struggle with those things all the time, and I think that this is an era where how nice that we can question those things.
Absolutely. There's a neat campaign going around called "It Was Never a Dress," and if you look at the women's restroom sign, you tell the difference between men and women's, because the girl has a dress on, right? Well, it's actually a superhero cape, according to this campaign. And it's so smart because it just makes you think about our lens and being open to, well, what if it was never a dress? And that type of thing. But
I love that.
And kind of wrapping back into the why not now, is there something you've been considering doing that you haven't done yet? And maybe it's time for you to get your Why Not Now on. Maybe you've been dragging your feet on something, or it could be personal, professional, anything. Let's talk it through.
Well, going on the subject that we're talking, only because it's been present in my life recently, is finding doing a movie that deals with being Asian with an Asian subject matter. It's something that I've thought about. My parents, since I was a kid, was like, "You got to make movies in China. That's the next big market." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go make movies in Hollywood." And then having gotten there and done some movies and feeling this sort of increased need to tell a story with an Asian bend to it for a side of my brain that I want to explore and try and put in movies. So for the past year and a half, 2 years, maybe, I've been trying to find. I went to China and tried to see if there's maybe a Chinese movie, maybe Chinese language movie or something like that. It was, and the first time I've actually pursued, literally just getting a plane ticket to go and meet people there.
And what did it take? Let's dissect that for a second, because that was such a big point, getting the plane ticket. So you've been thinking about this for a while, and you've been taking steps. What pushed you to get the ticket? Was there something specific that happened or said?
Yeah, I think it was. I'd made a movie called Gem and the Holograms, and it bombed really big. I love the movie. I'm not ashamed of the movie in any sort of way. I'm really proud of it. But audience just didn't come see it, and it was very emotionally devastating for me, because I love the project so much, and it was all my friends who worked on it, and we had a product that I felt like people would enjoy, and so it shakes your whole being of well, am I doing this for reviews? Am I doing this for box office? Why am I doing this if it makes me feel like this when people don't go see the movie? I've just spent 2 years of my life doing this thing, and I had to stop down, and I literally just stopped looking on the internet for a while as well. And I was like, why? What do I need? What do I need for myself? And what is it that's most important for me? And ultimately, it came down to the stories, a personal story that communicates. Because I was a kid that felt alone, and movies made me not feel alone, and movies gave me hope. And movies and Michael Jackson videos and musicals made me believe in magic, in the unknown, and not fearing that stuff. So I came back down to that, and then I said, okay, well, what is the thing that you've always wanted to say? And maybe we go back to what makes who you are, and something that you're scared of. And it came to my own identity of who I was as an Asian American, and always sort of ignoring that side to me in my films, and saying that scares me the most. So that's the thing that at this time when fear has beaten you down, and you've just gotten a huge failure publicly, and everyone's feeling sorry for you, or not feeling sorry and hating on you and giving you death threats, then you go back to your roots. And I said, well, this is the time to face my biggest fear of doing a movie that's so close to me, but also that tackles a subject matter that I don't know the answer to either. So this is the time to do that if you are going to not let fear take over your creative brain, because it was such an easy spot for it to do that. I've had days and weeks during that time where the fear made me not want to make movies anymore. And I knew that was the wrong thing to think, but you can't get it out of your head. And I know that feeling, and I knew I just had to survive, because time can heal those things. I just had to survive past those moments to reassess. And coming out of the end of that tunnel was, all right, I'm going to do the thing that I have feared a lot of my life, which is confronting those ideas. And that is when I said, well, what does it take? I got to go to China. I got to just go see it. I'd never been to China, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so just bought the ticket and did it. It was just literally going online, clicking the button, just clicking the effing button.
Click the effing button.
And then there's no turning back. Putting your own money, a lot of money, on the line makes you go.
It totally does. That's how I actually ran my first and only marathon, is a random kind of dare. And I went online and Googled, different marathons. And sure enough, I clicked the button and I had to go train then. I was like, what did I do? Just because this was pretty. Well, that's awesome. And so are you.
Isn't that weird, by the way, that a piece of paper with a dead president on it puts value into something and can actually change the trajectory of your life just by taking this piece of paper and giving it to someone suddenly makes you want to live your life differently. Like, that's such a strange thing. And if that's the case, then our minds are so moldable and changeable that we are actually in control of all the things that motivate us to do anything. So you just have to create ways that make you feel that kind of intensity, and if you can internally have that currency and spend that currency, and not necessarily rely on money too, although money is a very clear thing that helps you do that, then anything in your life that you're confronting, you can tap into that currency and it'll force your soul to move. That's a weird, that's magic. That's something like so weird that we do.
Absolutely. And you're onto something. I mean, if you can reverse engineer and kind of set yourself up for those situations, you can create them and engineer them.
And that means that means actually harnessing fear and saying, like, I'm putting down this money, and the fear is that you're going to lose it and not have that money anymore, which is then motivating you to, and so that's using the fear to like move your soul forward.
It's amazing how motivating, the currency in the form of dollars, money can be. I was just listening to a podcast with Mark Andreessen and Tim Ferriss, and he was saying the same thing about, Bitcoin and all of this, all of the anger and the emotions around it are just so intense. And he said, really, other than religion, this is like the most intense he's seen, anyone get about a topic. And that makes sense. But so a few rapid fire, just quick questions for you. What are you reading right now, or what's your all-time favorite book?
I'm reading a book right now called China Rich Girlfriend, which is a sequel to Crazy Rich Asians, which is a movie that I'm attached to, which is the movie that I sort of have chosen to be that one that I really want to do, and that mixes all those things. So currently, I'm reading China Rich Girlfriend.
Very cool. So that gives us a hint into your next venture. And what advice would you give to your younger self? Maybe to that young man who was going through the drought, or even prior to that?
I'd say so many things, but ultimately, I would just say, I mean, it's cliche, but it's going to be okay. Like, I think the idea that no matter what you're going through, no matter how it feels, like I used to be very jealous. I used to be very trying to control every situation. But the older I get, the more movies I do, the more I feel like less control is better. And it's going to be like, no matter what, the world wants to take care of you. The plants and the trees and the insects and the animals have all not tried to control it. They've all gone with the world and what it's giving it, and have adjusted accordingly and have become the thing that they are meant to be. And so I would tell myself to just relax, and the world will give you its answers, and ride it all the way, and know that when it goes bad, it's meant to form you in a certain way, and you will be better for it, and you will turn into a new creature. And each of those things is turning you into something different until, and that's exactly what you're meant to be. And I think that confidence and that lack of fear of what the world is trying to turn you into and you don't want to, I think will make your life a lot easier and make you a more enjoyable person inside and to other people.
It's so true. And this has been amazing to talk to you and get so much insight and wisdom. I look forward to the next one, and safe travels, and congratulations on everything. It's been really fun catching up with you, Jon.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
See ya.
I love the story that Jon shared when he asked Steven Spielberg, how do I know when I'm a director? And Steven said to him, you are what you do every day. If you are a writer, then you don't have to tell everyone you're a writer. You just write every day. If you're a director, you don't need to tell everybody you're a director. You just direct every day. And I thought that was really profound. You can follow Jon on Twitter and Instagram at Jon M. As we are approaching the holiday season, I wanted to share something with you that I just learned at a Tony Robbins event, actually. And that is that the antidote of fear is gratitude. And the opposite of anger is also gratitude. And you cannot physiologically feel both of those emotions at the same time. And when we think about our why not now question, oftentimes fear is what's stopping us from actually taking action and gaining momentum toward answering that question. So if we think about this concept of gratitude and how that will keep us from being fearful, that might actually work to trick our brains a little bit. I'm going to try something this week that I haven't done in the past, and that's a quick segment called the Shelfie Club. The Shelfie Club is a fictitious book club that I made up, and it is to inspire us to take more photos of our books on shelves versus selfies. You get it? Shelfie Club, selfie, you get it. Anyway, the book I'm reading right now is Megyn Kelly's Settle for More. It just came out, and it was great. I've added it to the Shelfie Club webpage on my website, which is amyjomartin.com/Shelfie Club. I really liked Megyn's take on women in power, and it was refreshing. She has a pretty unbiased view of her last year, even though it was extremely intense. She calls it the year of Trump. And it was enlightening to hear her journey and hear her vulnerability as well as just raw, real stories, and that has made her powerful. So check it out if you're interested and let me know what you think. And if you have any other books that you would suggest, please send them my way, #Shelfie Club, and we'll start talking about books a little bit more. I want to hear what your why not now is. Please share it with me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Amy Jo Martin. I'll send a signed copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Renegades Write the Rules, to the first 200 people who listen, rate, and leave an honest review of the podcast in iTunes. And you'll also get a free month subscription from our friends at Headspace. This is only available to Why Not Now listeners. Once you've left a rating and review on iTunes, just email your iTunes handle name and your mailing address to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. and we'll get your package in the mail to you. For detailed show notes, head to amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. That's where you'll find links to things we discussed on the show, special offers, and how you can keep in touch with guests. Hat tip to my buddies Ash and Devin at Rock Salt Music for our tunes today. You just listened to the talented John Coggins in Let's Go and Let It Ride. And a jump high five to my talented husband, Richard Greer, for producing the show and being patient with me. See you next time. Until then, why not now?